a definitive number. We can keep it less than 15. I'd like to place in the nomination Jason Fluger, Garris Herndon, Robert Pagan, Freddie Amado, Lindsay Angle, Philip Ricks, and Ches Perez from the community.
Did you get all those done, Secretary?
I'll write them down. I haven't written down for you.
All these members,
These are all members, like, the coaches of the sports teams. They're all involved in the community for different youth sports. So who better to look at the layout and design than those who go out to the parks every weekend and can compare Floresville Sports Complex versus some of the other ones that they visit.
Can we have some more?
Yeah, and also I had a couple to add too, is Larry Latfield, he's with the Floresville Little League, Bronson Fuller, Tommy Bunn with the Floresville Wildcats, and also Bernice Delgado, who's a citizen of Floresville.
Madam Mayor, if you could ask the council to give those to the secretary to make sure she gets all those names. She didn't hear your last name.
Bernie's Delgado.
And then the two council-
So I think that's about it.
Did you get all the names from Councilman Tejada?
No, I need all this. Claudia Garza.
Do you have your list?
Yeah.
Sure.
So you're nominating those, Claudia Garza?
And Council, what we'll do is we'll put these all on a nomination list, and once we find out, after we go back to the contract, and I think the 8th is supposed to come back for final approval, and the numbers that are on there, then out of the nomination list, we'll request appointments for the actual number that are included in the final draft.
How many members?
Claudia Garza and what did you say?
For the FEDC. Well, we still don't know how many, so y'all nominate your people, and then if there's 20 city nominations, and the agreement final comes in and says 10 from us and 7 from y'all, then we'll
Chris, there's not a number that was on the resolution.
Right, and we don't have the final agreement either on there.
Yeah, but one of the things we're gonna run into a problem with council is that I gave you all 6 different plans from Heartland. I've met with him, we may even tweak some things, and he's coming back very soon, maybe in the next week or so, to come down to maybe 2 or 3 plans that we would hope that this board or committee would meet with. The problem is that on September 8th, we have to have a public hearing for the application that we're putting forth to Texas Wildlife on October 1. So this has to happen in, I don't know how to say it, fast and in a hurry. And so I'm not quite sure how it's gonna work with the agreement, but I need to have this board to make comment on it.
What it'll be is when the agreement comes up to y'all, if you want everybody that's been nominated to be on there, then we'll say the city nominations should be, I don't know how many it is, 15 people or whatever, and that should be our contingent, and these are the people who previously mentioned should be the ones who fill those spots.
So right now,
I
we're
think we can
appointing.
take, I think we can take that action.
Right, but we don't have a formal agreement, so it'll be part of when it comes into the agreement. We'll start to send our version of the contract to FEDC and say, we want, once Monica gives me the final tally, this is how many people on the advisory board, because it's in the actual contract itself that has not been approved that we will have an advisory board.
Okay, when does that come back to the council?
September 8th.
Which is the same day I've scheduled for my public hearing, because I have to have a public hearing prior to the application.
And when
So
does
like-
FEDC look at it?
FEDC's next meeting, I believe, is on the 12th, that's the
I
Monday?
believe so.
September 12th.
So Clarissa's, their attorney is supposed to send me their draft with all the changes that were discussed at that workshop.
Okay, so if we have, let's say if we establish a committee outside of the agreement, can we say, here's a committee, have the committee meet, and they tweak the plan? So then September 8th, when you all approve the plan, because you have to approve the plan and the application, and have a public hearing on the 8th, then we all, then
The
we can
city can
say,
establish as many boards and things as it desires to
Let's
do.
do that.
That's in the charter.
and then when we come to the agreement, we can say, plan committee A equals this, and that goes into your agreement.
And I think the resolution says 2 FEDC members,
I think
at least 2. Okay, I'll place in that same nomination Ben Reed and Ray Lambert,
The FEDC will nominate their members.
They're
but
nominated.
they're not meeting till the 12th.
Yes.
Right.
I'll
So
take
that's
it.
why this is a little, because we don't have a formal agreement in place yet, even though they have the resolution, we don't have the binding contract with everything, so.
I can invite Tommy Baker, their executive director, let them know that we're having, it'll be some meetings. If the board establishes me, do I have to post the notice?
I think it was only 2 city members, to my knowledge, 2 nonprofit sports organizations. So we have to make sure that they're part of the nonprofit sports organization, and 2 FAC members. That was the motion.
And that's what we.
So is the CNA premature?
If you want to, no, because September 8th, I'm having.
So we have
public-
all of these names, so they're all going to be appointed, because the CNA says to appoint.
And they can meet for the advisory board, and then once we have the formal contract put in place that says X number of people from everything incorporating the resolution, and that, then, that's why I call this a nomination list, and then for the final board that gets established pursuant to the contract.
And that's something also you could talk to their attorney, I mean, the more the merrier, you got more members of these organizations who want to be
And
involved.
that's what I said, before the final one's presented to council, I'll put forth that the city's allocation be increased to the number between everybody that's been nominated. The FEDC can make the same recommendation to their attorney
That's good.
or anything there.
Everybody renames either part of a board or has a
I
kid
don't know,
who's
because I didn't
playing
get how
sports
many
here in
names.
town, right?
But I thought the resolution did name so many, right? It did, when they approved it, it was so many of each.
I think
So-
we're looking too much into,
I think the intent, I can't speak for the FVBC, but I think their intent is to have community involvement. And so, I'm glad they didn't set a number, because if they set a number of 15, we may not find 15 people. And so we need to have this board. This board definitely has an interest in that. We need to have their input as I get down to the final ones, so that they can have their comments before I bring it back to you. And the deadline that's pushing it is because October 1, I have to apply, because you all have said you want to apply. We've hired a consultant to do so. I have to do it, and the consultant says the 8th is what we need to have, so that she can put all her stuff together to submit, because I think the 1st is on a Saturday. And so technically, she's doing it at the end of the month, because we have other things to do on the 1st of October.
okay, so at this point, we're waiting for what? Just very clearly, what are we waiting for?
At this point, I'm waiting for about another 3 to 5 days to come back with the second draft of the plan that we have. And then, once I get the second draft, I'll have the committee, whomever you all set up, to review that and make comments on it. You know, Sean said he's willing to come down, Sean, the gentleman from Heartland. And then, once their comments are incorporated, then it comes back to the council for approval on September 8th, a public hearing on September 8th, application approval on September 8th.
So all of this prior to FEDC meeting.
Yes. But I will walk that plan down to,
And they couldn't have a special meeting or anything on the 7th, or?
and we have a special meeting whenever they like. But we will give their preliminary plan. I think FEDC's comments have always been to me, they want to make sure that the community is involved. And remember, it's going to be in 2 different phases, because your funding is available, which will be probably here another 2 weeks, and their funding is still pending. So we're going to have, say, this part's going to be $1 million, and this part's going to be $1 million for. But it all shows them.
So we could move forward with that advisory group from the city side.
If you want them to have a chance to look at this plan before September 8th, yes, sir.
Okay, let's do that. And from the council?
So we still need a CNA from the council to appoint all of these names.
Well, you can do a motion to accept the names as nominated right now.
Okay.
How many names is there? This, I don't think she has all of them.
We'd have to get the list from what was
I
decided.
think it was, I had 4, you got 7, and then Gloria said 2.
Okay.
Gloria had 3.
Actually,
So,
we have Claudia Garza, David Ortiz.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Monica, can you give the names after the motion?
Yeah,
All right, thank you. CNA to appoint members, names to be, names as nominated, or names as mentioned to the Park Advisory Board. May I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
Have a motion, may I have a second?
So move.
Have a motion and a second. May I have citizens' comments? None? All right. All those in favor? All opposed? Yes, 5-0. Motion carries. Next item, and don't forget to give her those names, okay? Thank you. CNA regarding residency qualifications of candidate Tomas Robles for Council Place 1. Mr. Huck, you can take over.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Move this up a little bit here. I'm going to start, I know Councilman Ortiz has just walked out, so I guess he may have some questions when he gets back. But
Okay.
so what we've got here is an issue has been raised regarding the residency of one of the candidates for a council place. And so to govern this, we look at Chapter 145 of the Texas Election Code, which is titled Withdrawal, Death, and Ineligibility of a Candidate. The general rule in this chapter that applies to, in general, everything, counties, school boards, everything like that, states that except for a judicial action in which a candidate's eligibility is an issue, a candidate may be declared ineligible only as provided by this section. And then it goes on, subsection F of there, a candidate may be declared ineligible only if facts indicating that the candidate is ineligible are conclusively established by another public record. And this was adopted and last amended in 1993. So it's been on the books for a while. However, at the very end of that chapter in 145.097, in 2005, the state legislature put in a section that says home rule city candidate. Provisions governing the withdrawal, death, or ineligibility of candidates for city offices prescribed by a home rule city charter supersede this chapter to the extent of any conflict except that this subchapter prevails in regard to an election subject to section 145.09F. The subsection regards placement on the ballot once an individual has been declared ineligible, withdrawn, or passed away. That would require that if it happened after the 71st day before the election, then that individual would still remain on the ballot. Currently, we are at the 76th day before the election. So what this does is it appears to give the home rule city, the governing body, or the charter, the ability to determine eligibility of candidates in spite of what the previous section, the general rule says, because this is passed later in time. So it is assumed that the legislature specifically intends this to supersede, and it is more specific over the general rule because it only applies to home rule cities with provisions in their charter. Section 3.03 of the city charter states, the city council shall be the judge of the election and qualification of its own members and other elected officials of the city. Therefore, there is a charter provision that places the judgment of qualifications, and in that section is titled City Council be judge of election qualification. So there is a charter provision that states that the city council is to be the judge of election qualification. The state legislature has enacted a specific provision that appears to give authority to that home rule provision over and above the general law contained in chapter 145. So what that is that now the council is to review the evidence. Precedent was established in this matter by Judge Peoples that says that this provision of the city charter allows the city council to review qualifications, and whatever decision they make, so long as it's not capricious, will be upheld by the courts of law. So what we have here is public records relating to this that I will hand out and go through. And Mr. Robles, is he present? He is not present. Okay. Well, I have a copy for him if he comes in. And he will have an opportunity to speak if he arrives. All right, so these are the records that we have for consideration here that have been obtained from public record sources. The first page here is the actual application of Mr. Robles, where he has stated that his permanent residence is 544 4th Street.
Somebody go put on my robe.
All right. Do you seriously want me to wait for you, or? Okay. So the address he has listed is 544 4th Street, which is within the city limits of the city of Floresville. He is sworn and attested to that, and that's the first page, his application. The second page in the packet is a voter application for Wilson County. This says on December 28th, 2015, Mr. Robles applied for his voter application at the 544 4th Street on there. And one of the qualifications under section 3.02 of the charter is that you must have been a resident for 1 year preceding the election date. The next page on there is a tax receipt for that 544 4th Street. It shows that all taxes, city taxes, are current and paid on that address. And another one of the provisions of 3.02 is that you must not be delinquently indebted to the city of Floresville. So that shows that taxes at the location have been paid. The next page is just a continuation on that. The following page here, it's a short little page. It's got the history of voter registration, and it's got from 9/27/2012 until 9/16/2013. Mr. Robles was registered at 3rd Street in Floresville, and then from 9/16/2013 for the following year until 8/12/2014, he was registered at Shady Oaks Court, which is outside of the city of Floresville. And then there was no voter registration until the one filed December 28th. The following page there is a Wilson County Appraisal District report, which shows that Mr. Robles owns the property at 139 Shady Oaks Court. He has exemptions filed by sworn affidavit with the county of a homestead and disabled veteran homestead on that location in the county. The next page, the following 2 pages are just the continuation of the appraisal district report on there.
So that's his primary residency?
That's for the council to decide. That this just shows that he has a homestead application filed on that property. The next pages on there are from the tax for that 139 Shady Oaks Court, showing that it does have the homestead exceptions on there, and because it has a disabled veteran homestead, the tax levy on there is $0 on there. The following pages show that Mr. Robles does have water and sewer service at 544 4th Street inside the city limits that he pays, and he was current at the time of polling on that. And then the final 2 pages are, again, the new voter registration from the county that state that his application was filed 12/28/2015. 30 days later, it becomes active at 1/27/2016. And then the final page is the elections for which he was registered and did vote in. He voted in the March 1st primary election, and he voted in the May 7th special election in the city of Floresville.
That's at the 139 Shady Oaks?
No, those would be under the 544 4th Street address. He voted in the city of Floresville.
There is a home there?
There is a home there that I've driven past every day on my way home, so. Those are the public records.
the owner?
That the official records show that a Mr. Rios is the owner.
Yeah.
And this is the point where I would invite Mr. Robles to come, and if he has any other statements to say or things to say on his behalf. This is just a presentation of the public documents that are available. The rest of the decision is.
So there's no water bills and electric bills that are at this residence under his name?
There are. That's in your packet.
Okay.
The 3rd page from the end is his listing of water and sewer payments to the city of Floresville. And those go back through October 2nd of 2014.
But the address on 139 Shady Oaks Court, that's where he has his exemptions, is that correct?
Yeah, according to the Wilson County Appraisal District, that is where he has a homestead and a
And that's not in the city?
Correct, that is out in the, outside of the city limits of
Thank you.
On item 3G, Mr. Rios, are you gonna tell us that you started your investigation, or is that something else? On this guy?
Oh, no, we haven't started.
Oh, okay.
No, Chris is the only one. So, is there any request or a need to go into executive session for this?
I would like to go into executive session for this.
It could potentially result in litigation,
Did
and
we
so
do that?
consultation, you can consult with your attorney in there. If you like, if anybody wants to make a motion to convene.
But the
On this,
council,
can I make a motion that the candidate is, no, I cannot,
You're welcome to make a motion, Councilman.
yes, we have, it's a CNA.
that he's ineligible and he's not a resident of Floresville, of the city of Floresville.
I have a motion to declare Tomas Robles for council place 1, declare him ineligible because of his qualifications. Do I have a second? Did I do that correct?
I think it was based on residency, is what Councilwoman Cantu said.
Because his homestead is in the, it's not in the city, right? The homestead is not in the city?
Correct, according to the appraisal district records, that's correct, yes.
And please reiterate that this council does have,
Under
can make
the,
the decision.
under the Texas Election Code, in 2005, by the reading of the statute here, that the state legislature has ceded that authority to a home rule city. It states, any provision of this chapter, this is all chapter 145, and if there is any conflict, which this would obviously be a conflict where one part of the chapter says that you, only a judge or the elections official with certified public records can make it versus the charter that says that the city council is the judge. So that conflict is created, and then this clearly states that the terms of the city charter supersede those of the rest of the election code. So there is a motion on the
Do we
table.
have a motion? Do I have a second?
I'll make the motion.
Or the
I'll
second
motion.
You second the motion? I have a motion and a second.
And this is
Any citizens' comments on this item?
Couple of,
Please identify yourself, sir.
you identified me earlier, Madam Mayor, my name's Jim Miller.
Thank you.
Couple of cautions is, you're taking one of 10 candidates and going through all of the public records of one candidate in a public forum and declaring that one candidate ineligible because of your determination of residency. Charter doesn't define residency, state law does. Second thing I would advise this council on is, just as your council advised you, this is going to open the door to litigation, and a stronger precedent is a precedent that came from the Fourth Court of Appeals.
And if I could address that.
Okay, but, which is after this piece. Okay, what the charter says is that the council shall be the judge of the elections and the qualification of its own members. None of these candidates are members of the council. So the language, I think, is slippery, and you're opening the door to litigation, as my name is, or memory is failing me, but as was said in earlier comments, you know, we put voters' registration to a great deal of scrutiny. We should put our candidates through the same thing. He's presented his voters' registration. Okay? He's done all the things that happen in any other election. And we're not giving the other candidates the same scrutiny. That in itself is a violation of due process. Okay? So I warn you about the decision and the legal fees that you're going to incur, okay, in defending your decision.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
And there were 2 points that I wanted to address. The first about the voter registration. His records do show that he registered as a voter in the city of Floresville in December 28th, so less than a year before the election. The second matter regarding the precedent, in 2012, the lawsuit was filed with the Fourth Court of Appeals because the city secretary, the election judge, was the one who made the determination. That power is not given to that official in the charter. So this is a different situation where the power that's conferred upon the city council is the one that the motion has been made upon, not a secretary's decision.
I got it.
Another citizen's comment? Yes, sir. Please state your name.
Greg Hendricks, Floresville. My question is, how do we pick and choose who gets the special treatment?
It's individuals where questions have been presented regarding residents.
So it's anybody that, so now anybody that comes in front that goes to election is going to be scrutinized if they're capable of running by the city council, is that correct?
If a question is raised regarding residency, that will be presented.
Any question by anybody.
Right.
What I tell you,
Thank you.
kangaroo court.
Anyone else? All right. Council, let's take a vote to declare him, we have a motion to declare him to declare Mr. Robles ineligible.
And for procedural reasons before the vote, I would request that Councilman Tejada, because he's a current candidate for the same seat, recuse himself from any vote.
All right. So we have 4 left. All those in favor? Raise your right hand. Three. All opposed? All right. 3-1. Motion carries.
3-1-0.
Motion carries to declare Mr. Robles ineligible for this election. Thank you. We'll move on to the next one. Item G, CNA to retain the law firm of Rios and Garza Galando for legal advice on the upcoming Floresville city elections. Its compliance with HAVA, the provisions of the election code and related issues. Councilman Tejada?
Yes, Madam Mayor, like Mr. Jimenez said earlier, when there was news, that the election was in 2 different locations, I received some phone calls, and as everyone knows, that the City Hall has always been the voting place for the city of Floresville. It has never been anywhere else. And they said this was the reason, because we went from a May to a November election. Well, we went from a May to November election back in 2011 or 2012. So it's been 5 elections. This would be the 5th election, and nothing has ever been brought to our attention. So I just wanted to see if Mr. Rios and Mr. Garza can give us some insight and just provide us some guidance on the process.
Why are we seeking outside advice when we have our own legal department?
Well, you want to finish? Go ahead and finish, and then I'll talk. Mr. Garza and Mr. Rios are known as are specialists in election law. I think I can say that. Is that correct, Mr. Garza?
Yes, Council.
Okay.
And we've hired him on another election case and it's still unresolved. I mean,
It's unresolved, but that's a different case, and we'll talk about that on item 5.
Anything else? Any other questions regarding retaining the law firm?
I didn't have any questions.
No, but does any of the council members have questions?
Did you want to say something, Mr. Garza or Mr. Rios?
So, the decision is obviously the council's decision, whether they want to hire outside counsel to research this and present alternatives or options to the city. We're prepared to do that if the council so wishes. We have some experience with that statute, and we'd be glad to provide those services if that's what the council wishes.
Thank you.
So we're asking for their services to ask if we can move the election or hold the election at City Hall?
No, just everything about the move from May to November.
But why are we moving elections? I mean,
No, we vote.
No, we moved from
when
November.
this was bills, where did they vote at when this was bills? They didn't vote here.
No,
We
at City Hall.
voted at the City Hall.
Doesn't
So it's
matter.
been a city
But
hall.
wherever you post the election, with today's technology, people are gonna know where to go. So we're gonna spend thousands of dollars, so we don't have to move a location, so you don't have to make the notice and put a sign up that says to vote here.
Well, the citizens, I mean, I've had,
The citizens ask you to spend thousands of dollars to,
No.
not to move the polling location?
no, they've asked if we could keep it at the same location. They've done it all their lives here, so, you know, some people don't like
Gerard,
change.
you're talking about 10 people, Gerard, maybe. 10, maybe 15 people, come on. Don't BS us. Okay, whatever. It's not whatever, it's not what, is it some people? I mean, what people? I mean, wherever you put a notice to vote, people will go vote. It's that simple.
Any other discussion? If not, let me have a motion.
I make the motion to retain the law firm of Rios and Garza, Rolando for legal advice on the upcoming Floresville city elections and to compliance with HAVA, the provisions of election code and related issues.
May I have a second?
I'll make the second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. May I have citizens' comments, please?
I'm Nick Nissen. We have an attorney that read the ordinance to you guys. You went to the county court, sat in there with Mrs. Cantu, and they explained it. Now you have an attorney that comes up and says, some experience. Why would you want to hire an attorney with some experience when he read it verbatim? Thank you.
Any other comments?
Jim Marhan. Councilman Zahada, you were mayor in 2012 when we went to this.
Yeah.
That-
Jim, I totally understand that.
You should have known that.
We were informed just like 2 weeks ago.
Well,
I know we were informed.
That's true.
my point here is that moving the elections from May to November, combining the elections with the county, gives us a single voting place, so I don't have to run all over town to vote. If you start spreading this stuff back out the way it was before, what you're really doing is you're saying that you're supporting and taking care of the people who only vote in city elections. And you're denying this convenience for the people that vote in city and other elections that would be in one place. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, to clarify, the city council has voted to approve the polling locations for the city and approval with, in conjunction with the county. There is no dispute about that. And to answer Mr. Nissan's question, Mr. Hubbs got up and made the presentation, and there was still disagreement.
Any other citizens' comments? All right, we have a motion and a second to retain the law firm of Rios, Garza, and Rolando for legal advice on the upcoming Floresville city elections. It's compliance with HAVA, the provisions of the election code and related issues. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 3. All those opposed? 3-2, motion carries. Thank you. We'll go on to the next item. And the next item, I'm going to roll it into the executive session. It's CNA to update the status of Miller versus City of Floresville, et al. 15-12-07-12 CPW, and take action pursuant to the recommendation of any special counsel. So, having said that, may I have a motion to go into executive session?
I make a motion to go into executive session.
Okay. Okay, I have a motion and a second to go into executive session pursuant to section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code, consultation with attorney to discuss status of Miller versus the City of Floresville, et al. 15120712 CDW. All those in favor? Say aye.
Citizens comment?
All citizens' comments.
No citizen comment?
For an executive session that we haven't held yet.
Vote?
Chris, do we have
It is in
citizens?
the charter that any action item, since it is a.
All right, please step up. Identify yourself.
I'm Doug Jones, I'm with the Floresville Parks Foundation. I would ask that when you come back out, that this law firm tells us which member of this council, instead of saying the city council, represented them, was taken into representative by them on the 2nd of November, 2015. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, council. 8:34, Madam Secretary.